But I remember this boy one day, he completely threw me in the classroom. They were 9 years old, and I was tidying papers or something, and he said, "Sometimes I wonder why I'm here." So I said, "Well, you're here because all children have to go to school between this age and that." And he said, "No, on Earth." So I said, "Right." I said, "Sometimes I wonder the same question."
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Yerhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. My guest today is Gail, and she is incredible, and I can't wait for you to hear her story and hear what she does. This is going to be great. So, Gail, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you like to spend your time?
Yes, hello, Nick. Hello, everyone. I am a teacher, and I started teaching, believe it or not, in 1974. And the world has changed considerably since then. And now I stopped teaching in schools, even though I spent a year in America. So I feel as though I know you. I was teaching in Boulder in Colorado in a little private school there. During the pandemic, I realized that I couldn't get to my favorite place, which is the seaside. And so at the end of the pandemic, and also I couldn't get to my sister, at the end of the pandemic, I decided to move house because by then I was working entirely online with children, and which I still do. And so now I live by the sea, and I love it. I absolutely love it because I can walk. You know, my parents used to live by the sea, and so I saw the sea regularly, even though I lived in London for most of my adult life. But now I can go when the people aren't there, and I can walk along the water. I just love it. It's so refreshing. My whole life has been about finding reality, if you like. Sounds very new age, but it's not. There are so many conflicting views that we're introduced to as children and as, in our lives. And I wanted to know, is there a core? Is there a core that we all operate from? And guess what? There is. And it took a long time. It took a long time. And partly it was while I was teaching in school, and I was still on my own life journey of trying to work out what am I supposed to be doing with my life? I think it's a question we all kind of think. And that led me to look at children in a different way, because I see them, every single one of them. And I tell you, Nick, if you saw the variety of children I've worked with in 50 years, from able to not able to intelligent to not seemingly very intelligent to having special needs to being super bright to being very wealthy to being very poor. I mean, the whole mix. But the one thing that is consistent through all of it is that the parents run into the same issues. And I saw that to be through the fact that we're all born, I mean, there is dispute about this, but we're all born pretty much the same. We're all born reliant on other people. We're all born not knowing where we are, what day of the week it is, or what our name is. And we start our life dependent on other people. And what we don't know is that there is a culture in existence here. And so we have no way of understanding what we're meant to do or how we're meant to be. And we're very quickly introduced to that culture. We're very quickly introduced to the rights and wrongs of the culture here. And so that really, when you ask me, how do I like to spend my time? Walking by the sea, fighting my cat, who's very bossy.
I know how that is.
Very bossy cat. She's a rescue cat. And so, she knows that I feel sorry for her. So she gets her own way. Where I'm sitting now is in my garden. And underneath my garden room, there is a fox with 6 cubs. And I cannot...
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were so cute when they came out. And now they're just trashing my garden. I think they're teenagers. And most of my time is spent either working or writing or walking by the sea or having coffee with a friend or reading more about this incredible thing we call life that we seem to go through like that. I can't believe that I've been teaching as long as I have. And I realize that, that they say life's too short. And I wish I'd had what I now know at the beginning. But to help other people, I'm writing what I now know into my books. Because I don't think you need to spend a whole lifetime. That's part of evolution, isn't it? We all do our little bit to educate other people. So that's where I am. Yeah, that's where I am.
That's incredible. And, your experience in teaching, I can't imagine everything you've seen. That's really awesome. So what subjects do you teach?
Mostly, when I left teaching in school, it was to focus on motivation. What is it that drives a human being? What is it that the last year I was in school, the children came bundling through the door, pushing and shoving, and I'm going to sit here. This was the first day. I'm going to sit here. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to sit by so-and-so. And I took a breath because I was going to bring them all to order. And I stopped myself. And I decided to wait. And it took 15 minutes. I don't know if you've ever sat for 15 minutes waiting for somebody to notice that you're actually waiting. But it took 15 minutes before somebody said, why hasn't she said anything? What's going on? And I waited until there was absolute silence. And then I said, I'm amazed you did that. Absolutely amazed. I'm your teacher for the next year. Not one of you said good morning. Not one of you asked if it was okay to sit where you're sitting. Not one of you asked if I had anything in mind for you to do. And you just came pushing and shoving and saying where you were going to sit, and as if I didn't exist. Where is your self-respect? And of course, the next day they all stood in a straight line in silence, which wasn't the plan. But it made me think, who teaches self-respect? Who teaches those core things that every life needs? And as you say, I've taught, I think, about 40 different nationalities. I've taught people who don't speak English. And the variety is immense. And sometimes even I pinch myself and think, am I lying? But I'm not. And that core that's in all of us, I think, needs to grow and develop and not be swallowed up by the demands of the culture. So when I teach English, that is my subject, but I'm working on motivation. So I teach it in a different way. If a child has a learning block with anything, then, but if your comprehension isn't there, you can't understand any subject. So I teach the children about how their brain works, but in a very simple, accessible way. And I can give you an example from just this morning.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
A child I was talking to this morning, I think he's 10. Pretty sure he's 10 now. And I asked him how he was, because it's a holiday, a school holiday, and his mum asked for a lesson this morning. And I don't normally work, but I thought, well, it's continuity for him. He has dyslexia. And he feels that he's no good at English, but he's great at maths, which often happens. And and I asked him how his week was going, and he said, "Oh, it's really good. I did 4 hours gaming yesterday." And I said, "Oh, and how are you today? Have you slowed down yet?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine." So I said, "But you know how screens affect your brain?" And he said, "No." So I said, "Do you know that Steve Jobs wouldn't let his own children have screens?" And there is now children, I've got children, when I teach them my brain lesson, they actually, and this little boy, they actually decide for themselves to put their screens away when they're studying. And I have seen children's
That's amazing.
I'll tell you, Nick, what's happening to children's brains, because they're developing and growing, it's actually changing the way the brain is working. And I knew when this little boy this morning, I'm fine. So I asked him to read to me. And he missed words out. He didn't take any notice of the periods, full stops, we call them. He glossed over the words that were a bit longer that he should have broken down. And I said to him, "Do you see what's happened now? This is not your best reading." And he giggled. And I said, "That is because your brain is racing because of the screen time you had yesterday." And then I said to him, when you go for a run, and if you're running for a long time, you get out of breath and your blood pressure goes up. And every person in the world has blood pressure. And it has to be between one number and another number. And as long as it's there, you're okay. And when you do a lot of exercise, it goes up. And when you're resting, it comes down. And that's perfectly natural. And I said, about your temperature. If you're sick, your temperature goes up often. And when you're better, your temperature comes down. And there's a certain limit of where your temperature should be. So he understood all that. And I said, well, when you play on video games, your brain speeds up. And if you don't know how to slow it down again, you won't want to study, and your brain will go, "Oh, I don't want to do this."
And, exactly.
And he got that. And I explained to him 2 years ago, I was teaching a boy with dyslexia, and I explained it to him because he had, school entrance exams to sit. And I could see he wasn't making progress. And I said to him, if you keep playing on your Xbox or whatever it was called, I can't remember, what do they call them now? Something 4.
There's a lot of different ones.
Yeah. If you keep playing on that, you will not be able to retain the information for your exams. And 3 months before the exam, he stopped. And his mother wrote to me and said, "I can't believe it. He stopped." And I said, "How's the work going?" And she said, "Well, he's really studying now." And it's, there is a natural speed that we work at. There's a natural speed that the brain works at. And when we get, if we look at the number of people in the world who are stressed or ill or trying to self-medicate, as they call it, with alcohol or whatever, then we're looking at some serious problems in the culture. And then we expect the children to join in. Only I don't. I am trying to teach the children how to manage themselves in it so that they look at the world as separate from them, full of activities. Some of them are good for you and some of them are not. Some of them will help you and some of them won't. And that's how I approach it, so that children can understand that not everything in the world is for them, and they don't have to turn themselves into something the world wants, because they are here to develop them. And I'll split it that way.
I absolutely love that, because, like for me, I don't want to be average. I want to be exceptional. And the world is all about making everybody average. Well, no. Let's be who we are. Let's do what we want and experience the best quality of life that we can. That's more important than anything. But I feel like, especially nowadays, everybody just wants to fit in.
Yeah.
But it's like, why? Why not stand out? Like, be yourself, So that's what I'm all about. I'm all about, standing out, look at me, because I learned, about a year and a half ago to not care about what others think, to do what I want to do, because what I'm doing is helping people. So, but like, as far as like not caring about what others think, that goes along with like, me going out in public. I have cerebral palsy. I walk different, so people stare, and I used to get so down on myself, wondering what people are thinking about me.
Yeah.
Once I figured out how to not care about that, my whole life improved, because then I could be my true self.
Yes. Well, the cerebral palsy, that's something that happens at birth, isn't it? Is it something?
Before, during, or shortly after birth. So, like, for me, it happened during birth. Like, I was born dead. I didn't have a heartbeat. I wasn't breathing.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I ended up with it. Just from brain damage due to lack of oxygen.
Yes. Yep. Well, I had a class once. I have taught children with cerebral palsy. And I had a class once with 3 children in it, 2 girls and a boy. All of them were very different. They all had cerebral palsy.
Yep.
The 2 girls were mostly in wheelchair because they couldn't walk, but the boy would walk. And as you say, it's not what would be considered an average walk. But I remember this boy one day, he completely threw me in the classroom. He was 9, they were 9 years old, and I was tidying papers or something, and he said, "Sometimes I wonder why I'm here." So I said, "Well, you're here because all children have to go to school between this age and that." And he said, No. On Earth. So I said, right. I said, sometimes I wonder the same question. And the thing is, this, the body part is, what do you call it's, I can't think of the word now. It's expendable. It finishes, we leave it behind at some point. But it's great for the journey while we're on Earth. That's how I see it. And I think it would be a complete waste if whatever creates human life, and you can call it whatever you want to call it, nature, God, some people call it, whatever you want to call it. I cannot believe that there isn't some kind of intelligence somewhere that can create over 8 billion things, all unique and all the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's mind-blowing. And it
is. It's just remarkable.
It is. And I used to say to the children, I want you to look out of the window and tell me how many blades of grass you think there are on the planet. And you'd see their little brains kind of going, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
And I say each one of those blades of grass is trying its best to be the best blade of grass it can be. And I want you to be the same.
Yeah.
And
I love that. I love that.
Well, but when young children look at the world, do they see people being the best?
No.
No. I mean, I have conversations with children who are, about they see the distress in the world. They see that people aren't happy. They see, homeless people. They know that it's not safe to go out at night, or, all of the hostility in the world. They see all that. It doesn't matter what you say about what a wonderful world it is when they're seeing that. And the way that I talk to them, I'll say, you can see the world is not a very happy place for people at the moment, but it is changing. And you can be part of that change, but you have to choose.
Exactly.
And you have to say, I say to them, even very young children, I say, do you want to make the world better or do you want to make it worse? And the little ones, they always say, I want to make it better, I want to make it better. I said, well, start today.
Yep. Exactly. Start right now.
Yeah. And the way to start is to put everything, be the very best that you can be. And they love it because it makes them feel important. And I think
exactly. And that's huge just with any person. If you feel important, you're going to do more.
Yeah.
That's just as simple as it is.
Yeah.
So, if you want to feel important, do something so you are important.
Yeah.
A lot of people just, glide through life just doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And it's like, we need more people to step up and be incredible,
Yeah, I agree. It's like people, I don't know what it's like in America at the moment, but here we seem to have developed a culture where people feel someone owes them something, or it's always someone else's fault. It's somebody else's
same here.
fault. And you think, well, hang on, you're a person. It's not someone else's fault. You can take action. And I think people lose sight of their own capability, actually, which is a consequence of the culture. It's not their fault, And I in all of my books that I write, I put little anecdotes to illustrate the points I'm making. And I remember for myself, when I was, 8 or 9 years old, my mother asked me to go along the road to Auntie Melwyn. The only time in my life I've ever come across that name. And she said she told me I could have some of her sweet peas. Do you know what sweet peas are? They're little. They're sort of pink.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
They're very, very beautiful pastel-coloured flowers, and they have a gorgeous scent. So my mother said, go along the road, and she said, you can have some of her sweet peas. So I go along the road, but at that age, I didn't know what sweet peas were. And she gave me some scissors and said, they're at the end of the garden, love. Go down there and help yourself. And I didn't have the confidence to say, I don't know what they are, because the assumption was I knew. So I went down the garden, I used my intelligence, and I picked all her green beans, thinking those must be sweet peas. And of course, when I went back with the beans, everybody looked at the beans and said, what have you done? And started laughing. I said, I thought they were sweet peas. And
That's awesome.
So, a mother, after a workshop that I did, talking about the way that we need to interpret children's behavior, and instead of thinking that they're all being naughty, start from, why are they doing that? What is the cause of that? Because I don't know many children who are deliberately naughty, young children. And I remember one mother telling me this story where we'd had a little workshop with some mums, and a few nights later, she was upstairs and she was bathing the baby. And she heard her 8-year-old son call up, the milk has spilt all over the kitchen. And she said, for once, I didn't tell him off. I went downstairs to see what had happened. And he was trying to help her by giving his little brother a glass of milk.
Aww.
And she said, I couldn't tell him off because he'd spilt the milk everywhere. And if this conversation changes one little thing for a child, any child or another human being, then I think that's a fantastic job done.
It is. And that reminds me of a story my mom told me. So I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I woke up before my mom, and I wanted cereal.
Right.
So I found the cereal. It was Cheerios. And instead of using a bowl, I apparently just dumped the Cheerios on the floor in the kitchen. And then I got the milk and did the same thing. And my mom woke up to me eating the Cheerios and the milk on the floor. So yeah, that's awesome. But
I know another child who wanted a drink. She wanted some warm milk. And she she didn't know how to do that. There was nobody around. So she filled the kettle. Yep. She filled the kettle with milk. And of course, after that, everybody's tea was tasting very strange. And we're very fussy about our tea in England.
That's awesome.
So they had to buy a new kettle because she had boiled the milk in the kettle instead of water. So, I love the way, I think children are super, super intelligent, but we don't always acknowledge that. And actually, one of the things that I've written in this new book, children don't know what a silly question is. And so when they're told they've asked a silly question, their self-esteem shrinks and their confidence shrinks. And very quickly, young children stop asking questions altogether. And then they accept what is given to them as this is how it is. But don't we all want it to be a bit different? Don't we want it all to be a happier place? I know I do.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. So,
all right. So, I would love to know if you could give a parent one very important piece of advice for their young children, like what to do with them or anything. What would that be?
One very important. I think I've got lots of very important bits of advice.
I'm sure you do.
I think one very important bit of advice I would give is to remember that your child is an example of the most intelligent, the most creative, and the most sensitive form of life on earth, and that they need your guidance in how to navigate the world. So boundaries are important. If your children are acting up, it's because they don't feel safe. And children want to feel secure. So, and parents make this mistake. So for a child to feel secure, they need to know where the boundaries are. They need to know that you are in charge and that they are completely safe with you to make mistakes, to ask questions, and they're not going to be called silly ones, to be on their side going into this great big conflicting world or contradictory world. And so if you can stand alongside your child and be that mentor in a way, as well as parent, I think you will see joy. You will see joy at some point along the way. And, you know, when the children are being a bit of a nightmare, I say to them, you're being a bit of a nightmare and I'll get irritated. Is that what you want? And they always say, oh, no, I don't want to irritate you. I said, well, can you get control of that nightmare then? It's making the point in a light-hearted way so that the child can control their own behaviour. Because it's not a free-for-all. We know that. We're all supposed to get along.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yep, exactly.
So that would...
that was a great bit of advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, what does my slogan, "Your abilities are infinite," mean to you?
Wow. Well, I totally agree.
I know, right?
Because I totally agree, because if you can go deep in yourself and appreciate what you are as a human, that you are a generator, you are an innovator, you are an initiator, and there are plenty of things that need to happen here. And if you can come up with any solutions, you know, we're problem solvers. I think that it is infinite. There's, you know, if there's 8 billion people, there must be an infinite selection of ideas, of thoughts, but always try to get your brain to work for you, not be subject to the next thing that comes along that grabs your brain's attention. Always make your brain work for you.
That's incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, how many books do you have out right now?
3. And
3. Okay. Can you share the names of all of them?
The first one is called A Short and Simple Book for the Wise, WHY.
Ooh.
And that was written, it's very small. That was written as a letter to my head teacher when I told him I was leaving teaching in schools. And he asked me what it was that I did differently, because he saw a difference in the children. And I thought about it for several months and then wrote to him. And because I realised I didn't do anything different. I taught children to read and I taught children, you know, math. But I thought the difference actually is how I think about children. I don't see them to be empty. I don't see them to be unintelligent. I don't see that there's something wild that I have to train. And so I wrote the messages that I give the children. It is a very short and simple book. And then the next one, after I'd been working in people's homes for about 10 years, the title came into my head first, and I'm actually going to re-edit it with a new title. It's called 100 Things to Learn Before You're 10. And this is because I would go to, people were paying me themselves. I wasn't employed by anyone. I was working privately. And I would go and work with their child. And I always say to people, I'm not a tutor. I specialize in motivating children. So if your child isn't performing at school or isn't happy or can't control their behavior, that's where I come in. And I've been extremely busy. But I would sit by a child sometimes and think, what needs to be said to this child so that they engage? Because if you're sitting with a child who won't speak to his parents and he won't speak to anybody and he doesn't want to work and he doesn't want to go to school, it's no good telling him off, because that's not going to motivate him. And what happened was some amazing insights and lessons that, as I said, make your brain work for you. I'd sit by a child and I'd think, what do I need to say? And I'd wait, and I put all the lessons in 100 things so that parents can say those things, because there isn't time at school, and it's a bit of a lottery whether your child will ever. They're very simple things, and when you read them, you'll think, gosh, I know that. And as one person said to me recently, I read your book, and I know it is fantastic. I know it, but you said it. And it's almost as though you get permission to say what you know, because we don't follow our instinct. It's not a world that's set up for us to follow our instinct. If we followed our instinct, we'd all run away screaming.
Ain't that the truth?
So this one has got my favourite lesson of all, which is the 2 lives. When a child wouldn't work one day, and he said to me, "What's the point?" And I said, "You think you've got one life, don't you?" And I said, "You're born at 0." And I drew a line on a piece of paper and put 100. And then I went along, splitting it up into tens. And I said, "You're here at the beginning of your life, and you think you've got one life, but you've actually got 2. And the first life is your natural life, which is the same for every single human being on the planet, no matter what they look like, no matter what size they are, no matter what their skin is like, no matter if I jump on your foot, it will hurt. If you jump on my foot, it will hurt. And that is your natural life. And your job is to grow and develop to be the best you can be. And if you look in nature, you will see everything that is trying as hard as it can to be the best it can be. That's what nature wants. I said, your other life is your world life, and that is different for every single human being. It depends when you're born in history. It depends where you are on the planet. It depends who your parents are, And I said, your job actually is to develop your natural life by using your world life to choose the things to help you grow. And he started doing his work. Job done.
That's amazing.
And I thought,
that's so awesome
to hear it, So I wrote it.
Yeah.
And other lessons about habits and how they grow, about the brain and how to talk to a child about the brain, and it's all in there. And then,
wow,
that one, I love that book. I remember. Can I tell another story?
Of course, go ahead.
I was teaching a boy who was at a very good school in London, and I wanted to see how well his brain was processing information when he was listening.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said a sentence, something like, I put my jacket on and I went outside to play. And I said to him beforehand, I want you to say exactly what I'm going to say to you. I want you to repeat it back to me. I put my jacket on and I went out to play. So first time he said, I got my coat. I got my coat and I went out. So I said, no, I'll say it again. Put my jacket on and I went out to play. So he said, I wanted to go out. And we went through this procedure. After about 4 or 5 attempts, he started to giggle because he realised he wasn't in control of it as much as he thought. And it took 9 times. And there's just him and me in the room. It took 9 times before he could actually focus and repeat it back to me. When I left the room, his father saw me upstairs and he said, I would never have believed that if I hadn't heard it. I didn't know he was outside listening. And he said, I would never have believed that if I hadn't heard it with my own ears. And he said, I'm paying all this money for his education and he's not listening. And it was a whole lesson that I then did with him on listening. Anyway, the stories are all in there. And then just recently, I decided I needed to make something even clearer for parents. And there is a core of skills that everyone needs, no matter what their age, for learning and for life. And so I wrote another book, which has just been published, called Making the Pennies Drop. And this is, again, full of stories. And it talks about the skills we all need and how parents can have a lot of fun teaching them to their children. Because I use a lot of games and I say to the child, we're going to play this game, but we're not going to play by those rules. We're going to play by my rules. And the skill that we're trying to develop is to make your brain process a little quicker for when you do mental maths. And when a child knows what it's learning, it can focus on it. No, if you are not told what this button is for, you can't use it. So I tell children, this is what we're going to focus on. This is going to teach your brain X, Y, Z. And now I've put it into these books so that parents can use them as well.
That's amazing. And I'm so, I want to learn more because, I don't have children myself, but I have a lot of family, a lot of kids around me. So are all your books on Amazon?
They are. Yeah, they are.
Good, because I'm going to go order all of them.
Oh, bless you.
Because I want all of them. And, I know, once I read them, I can share them with people that I love.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So thank you. Yeah, thank you too. Thank you for writing them. I mean, it takes a lot to write a book, so thank you.
Well, this one I've just written is my favourite at the moment because it's got big writing. And it's parents are picking it up and saying, oh, it's such an easy read. And I think the world is making us all so and stressed that we need an easy read. And that's why I'm going to go back and simplify, because the writing's smaller in here. I didn't have any professional help. The contents is good, but I'm going to simplify it a little and make it easier to read. But, it will be basically have the same content. But I think it is so important to get to the core and to be as much what we were designed to be, and not, we inherited the culture, we inherited the world, but that doesn't mean we have to keep it the way it is. And I'm so encouraged, by you doing what you're doing, because I'm so encouraged to see young people like Prince William with the Earthshot Prize. I don't know if you've heard of that. I love it. The Earthshot Prize, every year, you know Prince William. You've heard of Prince William here.
Yep.
He's our drop dead gorgeous prince. He has his sort of thing is the Earthshot Prize, and what he does, small companies can put themselves forward or can be nominated if they are doing something to help the planet. And they will be, the winners are awarded £1 million to scale their business. And so there is...
That's awesome.
It's only been going for 2 years, but it is fabulous because there's a company that are growing, coral reefs. They're doing something to help the coral reefs, to restore the coral reefs. And my memory's going for things, but you can look them up, the Earthshot Prize. It is so fascinating. Okay. And there's young people all around the planet doing such wonderful things, but it's all overshadowed by, the negativity. But that's what encourages me to keep going, to help young people and say, I'm doing a fantastic job. And I think you're doing a fantastic job. Because,
thank you.
People look at you, like you say, they look at you different. Why don't they look at me different? I'm different from everybody else as well.
Exactly.
So, it's tough. The judgment, the criticism, the comparison, all of these things don't belong with human beings, really. They're negative things. And we're more than a brain. We're more than a brain. We're a soul. We're a spirit. We're and it all needs developing. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, this has been an incredible time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. And if you have any questions from my books, if you have any questions or you want to talk about any of them, just drop me a line and we'll have a chat.
Awesome. And where can people reach out to you if they want to?
I have a website, and it is www.lessonsalive.com.
Awesome. And I will put the links to your books and your website in the show notes so everybody can find you.
Thank you very much, Nick. It's been lovely. I'm
so
pleased I met you.
If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in the Nick Yerhart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember, your abilities are infinite.